those who don't know, you've been around for a bit. I guess your first, in terms of music, first of all, when did you start at least playing piano?
When did I start? I was, I think, 10 or 11, something like that. We were forced to do it in my house. So I was the eldest, so I started a little later than my siblings, but we were all kind of forced at the same time. It sucked at first, but I came around.
Right. But you also played trumpet too for a bit, right?
Yeah. So around that time, when I started getting into music, it was about middle school, so 13 or 14. And I started playing trumpet in the band and, symphonic band, whatever. And that was when I really started to love it in whatever form. And I did, Kiwanis and stuff like that. And I ended up going to a high school that had a good band program and in search of that to North Toronto. So, yeah, I came to like it pretty quickly.
Okay. I'm curious to know when you started to take it seriously, music, because I believe, someone who performed or worked with your dad, his name is Richard Underhill. Did he kind of get you into music, or did he have some influence on you?
You know what? I don't know if I was taking it seriously, but I was very into it, and I was taking lessons with multiple people and playing piano and doing private lessons with that, and also doing trumpet in various bands. And Blue Rodeo hired a horn section for a tour, and Richard Underhill was in it, if not sort of MDing it or whatever, musical directing it. And when that was around when I was like 18 and just trying to figure out, or 17, 18, when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for university. And he really pushed me to go into a jazz program in music. And, he said, this would be really great for you. You'd really like it, and blah, blah, blah. And so that did have an effect on me. And I ended up going to York and really loving it. And also it pushed my sort of ability, or it gave me a push that I really needed in order to kind of make that jump from sort of hobbyist to, dare I say, professional. But it was really great. And Richard, all the horn guys there, Chris Gale and Brian Baird, there was a bunch of them, but Richard was the guy that was really like, you should do this. This would be great for you. So, yeah.
And I figure your dad was also kind of in your ear a bit too, no?
I think he wanted me to do it, but he didn't want to push or anything like that. Both my parents would have been happy. My mother's an actress as well. They would have been happy with whatever we did. I think he's thrilled that I am doing it, but I don't think he wanted to push. Now, to be fair, when I did apply to these universities, he took me to every audition and helped me find a teacher to prep me and stuff. So he was obviously as supportive as it gets.
Okay. I do want to get, again, obviously for those who don't know, you are the son of Jim Cuddy. The one thing I want to bring up with that, because obviously the last thing I want to do is just focus on Blue Rodeo. It's not about them. It's about you, of course. But I want to know, how do you balance that notion of sharing that name, having your dad being Jim Cuddy, but also making sure people focus on you as an artist? Because on one end, I could see you want to get some people in the door because, hey, yeah, this is my last name. But then again, no, it's about me. It's about my talent. So how do you balance that?
Well, I think the one thing is that our styles are a little different, so that kind of helps right out of the gate. The other thing I've found is that Blue Rodeo fans are very welcoming and open to various types of music and stuff, and they've welcomed me in a lot. And also, the one thing that I realized when I first started doing this was that if I pushed back and rejected it, it would not be fun for me to be in this business. And so immediately I had to, kind of accept. Well, it was easy for me because I think I'm proud to have this name and all that. And so you kind of had to accept it right away, because otherwise everything would be such an uphill battle. And I was very lucky to not kind of feel that way right away. And I'm very lucky. I'm a lucky guy.
No, that's definitely a great attitude you have. I got to talk about, how you kind of, you got your experience with performing and everything. And I think the main location or venue would be the Cameron House. I hate to admit it, although in my defense, I'm from Montreal, born and raised, and I haven't been to the Cameron House yet. I need to go. But can you talk about it? Because you said not only did you perform there, but I believe you lived and you worked there.
I did it all, both sides of the bar, and lived upstairs. So when I finished university, a friend of a friend was this guy named Cosmo Ferrero, and he had taken the bar over from his mother and uncle, who had owned it and run it since '81. You know, when his mom was running it, and that was when my dad was hanging out there and all that stuff. So there was this kind of a cool association right out of the gate. And Cosmo said to me, "We'd love to have you play here." And that was my first kind of real gig of playing original music. I played Wednesday nights, and I played solo on the piano. They had a real piano there in the front room, they still do. And it kind of went from there. And we started this little scene, or he started, and I was part of this scene that was a bunch of same age, like-minded, roots music stuff. He was sort of revamping the bar a little bit, and I was part of that. And out of that, we started a little label, and a bunch of artists were on that, and due to various reasons, I ended up living upstairs and working there as well. And it's my home in a lot of ways. It was literally my home for a while, but it's a place where I feel the most comfortable making music. And in a sort of circular way, we ended up doing our CD release parties there in the back room this past weekend. 2 of them, 2 nights there, and it felt, I don't know, right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can I ask, the Cameron House, is it like meant for primarily like Canadian artists? Like what's...
Oh yeah. Only local. Yeah. They have some... Like Toronto. Yeah, Toronto. They have some traveling acts, often if they're people or friends, but the idea is local music, front room, pass the jug, every night. And they do residencies, so like you'll do a Tuesday night, Tuesday matinee, Wednesday night, whatever, one of those time slots for a whole month. It's really a place where you can grow as a performer and get your hours in on the stage. And it's a scene, like a lot of musicians hang out there. I know over the years we've often had bands that were playing other places or touring, and they'd come after and have a party and stuff like that. And so it's like a venue and a home to the Vagabonds.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely need to check it out. So that's definitely something I need to cross off my bucket list while living here, at least. So in terms of your career, like albums you put out, you started in 2012 with Volume 1. Then we move on to Kitchen Knife. And then I guess this is an EP, which was Amy's Dream in 2018. And now we have your newest album, Dear Jane, which just came out November 3rd. I'm just curious, from Volume 1, which again was in 2012 to now, 11 years later, would you say your sound, has anything evolved from then? Has it remains the same? What would you say?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. The sound is definitely different. This record is sort of bigger. It's got a little more rock sensibilities in it, whereas the first record especially, and then a little bit of the second, was much more sort of old school blues and old school country and like sort of stripped down and more live and stuff like that. And I think in terms of the songs, they've changed in what I've been listening to. I think I was listening to a lot of old-timey stuff back then, and now listening to a little more contemporary folk rock and stuff like that, Americana. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to listen to the old stuff and then the new stuff for me, because, you think, ooh, I've changed.
I mean, that's
hopefully everybody likes it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's natural to evolve, but it's just funny because when I was listening again, Volume 1 in 2012, you were around, I think, 25 or something around that time. You sound like you have like an old soul even back then, you know what I mean? So, and it's funny that you say you listen to older music, so that kind of makes sense, to me. I do want to talk about some songs, both in old and new albums. I do want to talk about Amy's Dream, specifically the song Radio, because I think that's your most popular streamed song on Spotify. And I always wonder, like, why, or at least in artist opinion, why certain songs are the most streamed. And then you also had this video where you were up in like a cabin, I think it was during COVID, and you talk about how that song Radio is inspired by like other artists and how they got burnt out by the industry. Can you talk more about Radio?
Yeah, it was I guess the character in the song, it's not about me, is a kind of composite of a number of artists that I knew at the time, which was before COVID, sort of an important thing because times have changed a little bit. But people that were just getting burned out and burned out of the road and burned out of the hustle and all the things that it kind of takes to be in this business. And the song came to me in a different way than other ones did. I wrote the melody sort of in my head, like humming it one night, and then went from there. And yeah, it really is about sort of the trials of doing this, and why it's the most popular. I don't know. I think maybe the structure or the melody or something. But needless to say that it was not played on the radio very much, which I understand.
That's not. I think it's catchy. I think if people also
I don't want to be on the radio is not something that those radio people want to hear.
I think if people knew more about the meaning behind it, that's also how people connect to songs, of course. So getting that message out, of course, that's a challenge in itself, right? I do want to ask this question on behalf. Someone named Blue Jay Botanicals. What is the story behind the name of your latest album, Dear Jane? Is there a reason for that name, Dear Jane?
Well, I wanted to name it after one of the tracks, and it was just the one that felt right for me. The song is about Dear Jane and Dear John letters, sorry. And those are letters that it's from like a wartime thing where spouses from the home front would send letters to the service members on the front, essentially saying that they were leaving them while they were overseas serving, probably because of the distance or not. So it's about that, and cheery song, as you can imagine.
I actually wanted to touch on that because is it a coincidence that you put out the album November, seeing that now it's November 11th is Remembrance Day? Is there any correlation with that at all, or no, just coincidence?
It was just coincidence, yeah. I mean, a good coincidence, but it was just the timing. We've had this record for a long time, so we did a lot of the recording before the pandemic. Dear Jane was the one that was most recently recorded, and we were just trying to get the final things done. I didn't want to put it out during COVID because we tour and take the record to people. That's how we get our name out there. And so it didn't seem like the right way to do it during COVID, to just put it out and have it just sort of out there only on the digital format. So we sat on it, and all the things just started coming together in the spring, and November was just the time that everything was ready to go. And the fall,
I think you said it's been
bigger time.
It's like 5 years in the making. You started this before COVID, right? The album?
Yeah, so some of those songs were done at the same session as Radio and that EP. So some of it's that old, like 27.
I mean, I think every artist, especially artists that I've talked to in the past, everyone had stuff leading up to COVID, then stuff got shelved and it's just happened. It affected everyone, obviously, right? So just interesting to hear how much it was delayed by. Some people it was 5 years, some it was 2, 3. It's incredible. So
yeah. It was a strange time for sure.
Yeah.
Hard to know what to do. Hard to know what was the right way to put music out or when. And I kept thinking about putting it out and then not. And I wanted to print vinyl, and I thought, am I just going to ship these out to people? It's a lot better to kind of take the show on the road for us. That's for us. So.
And I want to ask more about, again, with COVID. Depressing, but in your bio, your Instagram bio, it says you're happy peripatetic. I've heard
somebody who moves around, peripatetic. Somebody who moves around for work.
Yeah,
I learned that word on PTI, which is a sports show with Tony Kornheiser, and it's an American sports show.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so
hilarious.
And those guys are like old school writers, so they use all these words that millennials have no idea. So I sit there with my phone and look them up one by one, and I thought, oh, that's me.
So that's me. Well, I was gonna say, so you're kind of like a nomad. So I think on one end it makes sense why you made this new album where it's kind of about telling people's stories, and even your previous albums. So I guess I want to ask, it must have been extremely difficult for you, at least during COVID, where you couldn't really go out, right? Or did you have any other inspiration to write music during COVID? No, that was something that I sort of learned about myself, was that I can't muster inspiration just out of my own mind and creativity that I need. Because I write from the third person a lot, telling other
people's stories. Essentially, I need to go and hear other people's stories to be inspired and to find things to write about. And I wasn't fully aware of that until that time, and I knew so many musicians that had such, you know, creative output was just pouring out of them during this time, and I just had nothing. I sat blankly at the piano often. I wrote some instrumental stuff and tried to get better at playing and stuff, but I just wasn't, the kind of songs just weren't there. And so, yeah, I mean, one of the great things about this job is traveling around, especially in Canada. You go between, you can be in Vancouver or you can be in northern Saskatchewan or something, and just hearing the way that people live in this country, and there's a million different versions of that, and I find that very inspiring. And I not all my songs are about specific interactions, but sort of all together they kind of inspire me, and so it was something I was missing for sure, and I'm getting back to now, realizing that it's sort of inspiring me again.
Is there a specific reason why you prefer to tell other people's stories versus, let's say, maybe your own?
Well, I don't. Maybe fear of exposing yourself is one. Seems like the natural thing, but I don't know. It was just something that happened, I think, sort of naturally at the beginning. And a lot of the songwriters that I love and am sort of inspired by do that. Steve Earle, Randy Newman are two of them. I remember Randy Newman talking about in an interview the challenge of taking somebody else's voice and making it your own. And I always thought that was a sort of interesting concept. And, there's little tidbits of me in a lot of the songs, but as a storyteller, you kind of want to tell other people's stories because there's more of them.
True. Yeah, that makes sense. Someone just asked, speaking of stories, someone asked, can you delve a little deeper into your songwriting methods? When you get a glimmer of a story, what's the next step? That's a good question.
Yeah. So, mine is sort of random. I mean, sometimes I'll have something I want to write about, and then I'll try that. I find that more challenging because you sort of force it a little bit sometimes. And other times you have a melody or something and you just kind of start going and it pours out of you. And that's more common for me. I think that, I absorb all this stuff when we're traveling on the road and meeting people, and then it kind of comes out of you in a lot of different ways. And then you just kind of gotta hold on and point it in the right direction and go from there. I don't. A lot of my songs are not specifically about one interaction. They're more communal about a bunch of different things, and so it's better to have it kind of flow out of you naturally. For me, everybody's different.
Fair enough. I do want to go back a bit into your past, specifically your childhood, because something I learned about you is that you were a big fan of A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, I feel like I'm one of the few people that didn't really care for it. But anyways, my question is, because of that, is this a coincidence or just by chance, in A Nightmare Before Christmas, there's a song called Jack's Lament. You have a song called Lee's Lament. What's the connection? Give me something.
Oh, no, I wish there was. Jack's Lament, that's right.
I wanted a juicy story there. Oh, never mind.
I know, I wish. Lee's Lament it was very sort of dry and boring. It was about, what was it? It was the, sort of the spin doctor for George Bush Sr. And he was like, what was his name? Lee Atwater was his name. And he was like a media guru. He essentially started the sort of dung-flinging version of politics that we see nowadays, where everything was accusatory and based on lies and stuff like that. And I just sort of read about him and was inspired. And, alliteration is big in music, so lament seemed to work for Lee's Lament. But Jack's Lament, I forgot about that. When I was a kid, that was one of the first sort of musical things that really attached to me. And I was pretty young, so I don't remember so much about it, but like I had the soundtrack and I would sing along in my room, and it was a full-on obsession, I think.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Halloween and Christmas.
That's so funny. Yeah, and you also talk again, like you playing trumpet. You said you listened a lot to Louis Armstrong, and then you were talking about, and I don't know who these people, but you mentioned like Kentucky Colonels, Lone something, Lone Sound, or something. I don't know. I don't know if it was like
Yeah,
bluegrass.
yeah. Kentucky Colonels were like a bluegrass slash humorist group. Um, all these things were found in my dad's CD collection. So my brother and sister and I all found our own little corners of it. And mine was like kind of old timey stuff. And Louis Armstrong was the first one. That was why I started playing trumpet. And that kind of led me into New Orleans music, which led me into that style of piano. Um, and and then it was into bluegrass. My brother and I got into bluegrass when I was in my late teens. And the Kentucky Colonels were a good one. That's right.
That's interesting because I feel like people, especially when you're a teenager. Not to say you can't like that music, but people grow like for me. I don't know, pop, rock, all the typical. I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you did you like all the other stuff, or were you really more just towards like that, the bluegrass and the blues stuff?
I think I got a little, not like whatever below is just below hyper focused on that stuff for sure. And I kind of dug in, and then I sort of traced it like backwards, or I guess it would be forward. Like I started in the old timey stuff, and then moved into later jazz and stuff like that. And yeah, I definitely I definitely was hyper fixated on that stuff. And I might have missed some of the pop music of our childhood. Although I always think that, and then you hear those songs on the radio, and you think they immediately attach to grade 9, or they immediately attach to, whatever era in your life, because you can't hide from that stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially pop music. It's basically forced down our throats on the radio, at least.
The radios are on, man.
Yeah, it's tricky. Especially, and I know it must be tricky for you, maybe because again, people always say, "What's your genre?" And if you fit a certain genre, you have to will it sound good on the radio? And which station could they put? It's trick. Is it tricky? Do you find for you at least for you trying to get on the radio?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's two things. Like I think the radio has narrowed a lot in a way, where I think there's probably fewer artists or more of a narrow sound on it. But in the other way, the industry is opened in a different way, where there's more subsets that have followings and can sell tickets and can have relative success. I always look at sort of the rise of Americana, where somebody like, just an example, also one of my favorite artists is Jason Isbell. You don't hear him on major pop radio, but he can sell 5,000-6,000 tickets in every town in North America. And so through streaming and I guess probably XM radio and stuff, satellite radio and stuff like that, there are many avenues. It's just changed. I don't know that it's necessarily harder or more challenging. It's just different. Now there are things that are definitely worse. Like there's the money that you make from music being played is definitely worse, but it's just different. And then you have to find your space in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to ask about another song on Dear Jane, because the sound to me, I don't know if there was inspiration behind this, but for Unemployable, at least throughout that gives off New York, Frank Sinatra vibes. Am I crazy or what?
No, for sure. That was definitely inspired by that. Well, especially with the horns. But even the form of that song is definitely from that sort of era, like where jazz sort of left New Orleans and moved up to the north in New York, and there was that poppy big band sound. And that song's actually about a friend of mine who came up with the name, and he was he was fireable back then. He lost a lot of jobs, but that song was old, and now he's very fireable and has no shortage of jobs. Sort of a testament to how long it took me to put that out. It's a real story. Every one of those firings is real.
That's good to know. I appreciate that. So what's the album Dear Jane just came out. I assume you want to promote it now. So you're going, well, you just came back from a little tour with your dad and your brother. So I think, are you doing another little tour? Like, what's the plan now for the rest of the year and then early next year?
So yeah, we just did a tour out east, just my dad, brother, and I. It was the first time we just did the three of us. It was a very fun kind of family band thing, and we were out there for a couple weeks. Um, the record came out last weekend. We did our Toronto shows, Ottawa this weekend. We have Hamilton and Peterborough, and then there's like little Christmas things, doing one song here and there. And then in the new year, we will look to do a little Western swing. And then I think in the spring, we'll go back east because we were just there. So we'll probably wait till the spring to do that. And all that stuff is in the works right now. But the Ottawa, Hamilton, and Peterborough are the next ones that we're hitting.
Cool. You gonna go to the Junos next year? They just announced it, Halifax.
I hope so. We used to go to do the Juno Cup, which was the hockey thing, but it is no longer happening this year. So we'll see. We will see. Hopefully, we'll still be able to go and hang out. I mean, Halifax would be a tough one to miss. That is a good one.
Yeah, I've never been to Halifax, so I've never been to the East Coast. And Nelly Furtado's hosting, who I love as an artist. So yeah.
Ash, it'll be great. Halifax is a special place. You'd really like it.
All right.
And it's a perfect place for the Junos. Everybody loves music, and they'll just go nuts. It'll be great.
All right. If you have an in, let me know. It's all about who you know, man. You know.
I'm working on it. Me first, and then you.
Perfect. Awesome. So I get it. You just released the album, but I guess every artist has different focus or goal. But for you in the near future, would you say it's singles, focusing on singles, or album?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely shifting. If people are putting one song out at a time. I don't know. It depends. Like I find I write in chunks, so I'm more inclined to go record to record. Even like I don't mind putting EPs out, but I still think I'd prefer sort of a full record. But I think that from now I'll just go based on how it comes to me. Like if I write a good song and it doesn't have enough around it to put out a full record, I'll put it out as one. And if it comes in a wave where I write a bunch of songs together and I think they're up to it, then I'll put it out as a record. I'd like to put out records, but I recognize that you have to kind of increase your output nowadays, and so I try to kind of fall in line with that.
Something else I thought of, again, going back to your writing process and about telling other people's stories, do you find yourself actively looking for stories, or would you say a lot of the times they just come to you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I find they just sort of come to me, like, especially we play a lot of small communities and small towns, and that's where, for me, the most interesting stuff is. And the most recent one that comes to mind is we were up in Mattawatchin, which is I don't even think it's an actual place, but it's in the Ottawa Valley. It's not a town, it's just sort of an intersection. We've played there before as part of the Festival of Small Halls, which is a great festival that runs up there. They bring artists to these very small communities. And I met a guy who was, he told me he did 10 years working in a mine on North Baffin Island. And I just asked, like, what's it like? He's like, they landed a 747 on the tundra, and the pilots were all these old cowboys. And like, he just sort of told me what life was like up there. And I just found that so interesting. That's something that you would very, very rarely sort of come across just sitting at home. So
no, you're right.
It's that kind of thing that I really like. People that live interesting lives, and they never think that it's interesting. And they like, oh, you're on the road, you play music. I'm like, yeah, that's fun for me. But like, what the hell is it like in North Baffin Island? That sounds crazy.
Right. No, it's interesting, and I appreciate that you do that. It shows that you're very curious and genuinely interested in people's stories, and I would assume that once you tell their story and perform it, they probably really appreciate it, and they like that, right? They must love it. So,
yeah, and I do find it interesting. People are interesting, and that's one of the things I love about doing this and traveling and playing music for people, especially in small communities. You hear. I guess it's perspective. You just hear about things and people's lives and things that they do that are very different from what you're used to. I live in Toronto. I've always lived in Toronto. The urban life is interesting in its own right, but it's disconnected from a lot of people's experiences. And so I consider myself lucky to be able to, get to meet people and hear their perspectives. Not more. Usually.
Someone was commenting about how the Juno Cup isn't happening, and they said, "Oh, the Cuddys are the best part of the Junos." I was so excited until now.
Well, you know what? We're not necessarily not going, but the Juno Cup is not happening. We're still working on it.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I got for you, man. But thank you so much. Again, like, first of all, for anyone who's watching, Dear Jane, stream it, all that stuff. You gotta sell it a bit, right? No, but it's a great album. Go check it out, and of course, check out all of Devin's music. It's great. And also, just Growing Up Cuddy? That's where I got some of my information. Great little videos on YouTube. Just so you know.
That's right. Yeah. It's good stuff.
It's a good way to learn about someone's history a bit and where they come from. So that was great. And yeah, your family, obviously very close, tight knit, which I appreciate. So good luck with everything. And we'll be in touch maybe. I don't know.
Sounds great. We'll see you at the Junos, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'll see you there.